going on, everybody? Been a minute or two since I've been on here. I've had a lot of things going on with my family. I had somebody pass away. Well, my sister passed away, so we've lost that link to the past. I guess I'm the last one remaining that knows any of these good stories. Had a few health issues myself here in the last month or so I've not been able to get on here, but I'm on here now. I've got a story, and it's kind of morbid. It's kind of one of these stories that I'm going to try to skip around some of the details and hope that some of y'all can read between the lines of what happened. But this guy, my grandfather used to trade hunting dogs with him. And if you notice, I'm in a different graveyard. But anyway, he used to trade hunting dogs with this guy, and he lived over in a neighboring county, and he lived over in a place called Del Rio, and that's a pretty rough and weird place anyhow. But back in the day, this was back in the 40s and 50s, he would trade hounds with him, and well, actually, he traded with his brother. He didn't trade with this man. He traded with his brother, but he knew the man from his brother and stuff. So there's where the story goes. This man was his name was Homer, and I can't remember his last name, but he was a really mean guy. He was mean to his wife, and he had one kid by another lady, and I think he was pretty rough on that kid too. So anyway, everybody in the community kind of knew that he was a bully to his wife and whoever he could get away with being mean to. And just to let you know how mean he was, this kind of part, don't shoot the messenger. But when his dogs would have pups and he couldn't give them away, let's just say it involved a pillowcase, and that's all I'm going to say about that. A pillowcase and a pond. So you read between the lines on that part. This guy was mean. He was very mean. But luckily, my grandfather would go down there and get these hounds off of him. I don't know if he couldn't afford to feed them or what, but he also raised hogs. He had pigs. He was a farmer. So anyway, trying to give you all the details here. Him and his wife had been trying to have a baby. And like I say, he was pretty rough on her. He's a pretty mean guy. And she got pregnant, and she was pretty far along with the baby when something happened. Something caused her to give an early birth, or maybe it was a miscarriage, I'm not sure. But anyway, midwife came out, and he was there, and they went through with everything, and of course the baby didn't make it. So the midwife gives him the baby to go and bury outside. So he takes it outside. He's not gone very long. The doctors and stuff are taking care of his wife. He comes back in. She does fine and everything. A few days go by, and she wants to see where he had buried her child. She wants to go out there and put some flowers. Well, he kindly ho-hums around, and he doesn't want to tell her where he buried the baby at for some reason. So she finally keeps on, and he takes her to a spot out there where you could tell the ground's never been broke. There's no rock, there's no cross, there's no nothing. He says, right here's where I buried it. Well, right then, she knew he was lying. She knew he hadn't buried the baby. And I don't really want to tell you what the rumors was that happened. Of course, it wasn't alive, but let's just go and say the man raised hogs for a living. So anyway, she got to where she despised this man. She couldn't stand him. This was just the icing on the cake. He'd done so much. This was just the icing on the cake. So She starts going up into the holler, paying trips up the holler to what in that area was known as people want to call granny witches and stuff like that. This lady was suspected of being this, and she lived outside of this community somewhere. So I couldn't tell you where. So she starts visiting this lady. Well, he doesn't like that because he's big and bad and all, but he's spooked by things that has to do with the witchcraft or anybody that has anything to do with it. So him and her get in a big fight, knock down, drag out fight. She winds up leaving him. I mean, he comes home one day and she's gone. And it's later found out that she turned up missing. Now, they didn't know if he had anything to do with it or not. He seemed to be devastated by this, but that's a whole different story. So, while all this is going on, one night he hears a commotion out near the pig pen where he's keeping his hogs. And so he goes out there with his lantern, and he can see something on the outside of the pen, but he can't tell what he's looking at. So he gets closer, and as he raises his lantern up, he can tell he's looking at a hog. So he thinks it's one of his that he broke out of the pen. So he gets a little closer, and he can tell it's spotted. Well, none of his are spotted quite like this, and this one's quite huge. So as he hollers at it, he thinks he's got a wild boar that's come out of the mountains, you know. When he hollers at it, this thing turns around to look at him, and this man told everybody that would talk to him in the community, this thing had the face of a man, what looked like a man. So this frightened him to death. He said this thing had eyes that would blink and looked right at him with a devilish smile. This is what he relayed to his brother that relayed it to my grandfather. And he said he knew right then he had been bewitched. He said this thing let off a god-awful scream. So he runs back into the house, and he can hear this thing outside his house the rest of the night. Well, he feels like that he has been cursed. You know, what has happened? What have I done to deserve this? So a few days go by, and he can hear this thing from his home. And from the wood line, when it starts getting dark, he swears he can hear this thing saying his name as it's squealing. It's saying Homer in with its pig squeal, so to speak. And this just spooks him out because he can't see it, but he can hear it. And he knows what it is because he's done heard it and saw it once before. So when daylight comes, he goes to the lady who his wife would visit, who he thought was the witch or the granny witch. And he asked her to unwitch him, to uncurse him, whatever his wife had put on him, to please take it off. And the lady seemed to not know what he was talking about. She said, nothing's been put on you that I've done. You know, if somebody has bewitched you or cursed you, it's not been me. So he seems perplexed by this. He seems to believe her. So he's heading home. It's starting to get dark. And again, he can hear this thing from the woods screaming his name. And it's driving him crazy. So he gets home, locks all the doors, but he can still hear this thing outside in the distance, in the woods, just out of eyesight, screaming his name. And he's thinking, what am I going to have to do, to get this to go away? So he goes outside with a shotgun. Well, he can't locate it, can't find it. So come the next day, he's had about all he can stand. He sees where this thing, the tracks, has walked around his window, has scared his dogs, has scared his other pigs that he's got put up. So he decides he's going to have to kill this thing. So he follows the tracks off into the woods the best that he can, and he comes up on like an old wet, dingy overhang, and he can't find anything in there. And all he can hear is this thing squealing his name, and it seems to be coming from different directions. So he thought, well, if I'm going to have to shoot this thing, I'm going to have to wait till night, till it comes out, till it comes to me, because I can't find it, but I'm sure it's around this cliff, this old wet, dingy, cave-looking place where its tracks seem to stop. So come that night, he sits out on his porch and he waits for this thing. And lo and behold, if it don't come out of the woods, and again, he can tell this thing has a human face. So from that point on, it's not clear what happened from there. If he killed it, if he shot it, or what. This is what he told his brother happened to him. He shot at it. He said it didn't seem to kill it. He told his brother the next morning that coming night that he was going to take care of this thing once and for all, that he had a plan. And he wouldn't tell him what it was. His brother knew this man didn't drink or, didn't use any kind of drugs back then. And he said, I can't speak my plan out loud, but I have a plan for tonight. I shot at it last night. It's unclear if it killed it or what. It sort of seemed to just look at me and walk away. Well, that night came. Next morning, his brother didn't hear from him. So he thought that was odd because he wanted to know if the plan worked. So his brother goes to his house and he knocks on the door and there's no answer. So he jimmies the lock. He gets in his house and he finds his brother hanging from the rafters and with a terrified look on his face. So he goes, his brother, shocked, he goes back to town to get the doc and the coroner and the proper people to come out and get the body and take care of it. So they all ride back out with him so he don't have to go by himself. They get there and there's no body. The body's gone. There's no rope. Rope's gone. So what has happened? And they're like, are you sure you know what you saw was what you saw? He said, yeah, I know my brother. He was hanging there and his face had done turned blue and black. He was dead. So I don't know who's come and took the body. Well, while they're discussing this, one of the people from outside that was there to help him yelled for everybody to come to the pig pen. Well, when they come to the pig pen, they found a pair of boots and a hand. And that's all they could find. And they determined it was his hand and his boots. So how he got from hanging to the pig pen been a mystery. And why he got from hanging to the pig pen been a mystery. But if you know hogs, they'll devour just about anything. And you can see where I'm going with this earlier with the baby. So it was a mystery to what happened to this man. Was it suicide? Did somebody do this to him? And how did he wind up over there in the pig pen if his brother actually saw him hanging from the rafters? The local sheriff checked the rafters and there was rope burn. So something did happen there. But they claim that way back in this holler for years and years, you could still hear this pig, this hog, or bull, wild bull, whatever it was, you could hear it screaming, and every now and then, you could hear the word Homer, and it screamed. I don't know what his last name was, I've long forgot it since I was a kid, but that was passed on to my grandmother. She knew the brother's wife. So this was a big deal outside of Del Rio, Tennessee, back in the 40s, 50s, and I don't know how far outside Del Rio it was, but it was kind of odd and kind of strange that something like that happened. And of course, they kind of kept it quiet in the community because they didn't want people thinking, you know, we got to go hang this witch or, you know, murder her. So it kind of died down and it was never solved, which is odd. But I thought I'd pass that little story on to you. Don't hate on me because of some of the macabreness. I try to dance around the details. But that's how it was told to me, except it wasn't sugared up as much as I put sugar on it for y'all. And I'll try to get back on here. My blood sugar's been shot up, so that's why I've not been on here much. I hadn't felt really good, but I feel a little bit better today. Thought I'd give y'all a look at the Tennessee mountains. I know that different view and stuff where I'm usually at. But anyway, keep in prayers for the little girl that's missing up in North Tennessee along the Smoky Mountains. Whatever's happened to the little Wales girl. And I'll get back on here and catch up with you all and try to answer you all in the comments as best I can. I can't answer everybody and stuff, but you know how all these YouTube channels want you to like, subscribe, and comment, and it's awful funny. They beg you for your comments, but they never comment back. Well, I'll at least try to talk back to you some if I can, especially if I see them. But anyway, guys, y'all take care. I'll jump back on here again, probably sooner than later, and holler at y'all. Thanks, everybody. Bye.